Hello everybody, and today we're going to do this beautiful drawing technique which is beloved of art schools everywhere. It's modelling the light. It gets you away from thinking about line, and it's a fantastic technique for drawing, for painting. I use this all the time when I'm doing my life painting. I also use it when I have artist block because it gets you away from thinking about, as I say, lines. So we're going to be modelling the light. I've got this lovely photograph, in fact taken by a woman in 1945, but it's so beautifully lit, and I think there is something in the male gaze. So this is just a woman enjoying how light is falling on the body rather than any sexual innuendo going on there. And so what we're going to do, we're going to black up the piece of paper with charcoal, which I think most people know this exercise, and then draw with a rubber and then work in with charcoal afterwards. And lots of smudging. Quite useful to have tissue papers if you don't want to get too mucky. Q-tips work very well for small modelling. You also have those kind of paper pencils you can use which will do very fine detail in this technique. But it's probably going to be a bit rough and ready, this one. But I'm going to black up the piece of paper using the side of my charcoal. And I'm getting a little bit of brass rubbing effect here, even though I've got many pieces of paper underneath. So it's kind of lumpy, but what you want is a sort of grey scale. So I'm just going to mush that together with some tissue paper so you don't get completely mucky. Normally I just use my hands, but some people are fussy that way. And then we're going to start drawing with the rubber. So the first thing you want to do is just look at the light that's falling on the figure. You can see that unfortunately the light of my studio is actually making that shine a bit, but never mind. So I'm going to go in and actually look at where the light is first. So I'm looking at her shoulder and her elbow. It's almost like abstracting the figure. Sorry, there's going to be a lot of wobbling going on here, I think, because there's quite a lot of rubbing. So here we are, that's her bosom, here's her waist, here's her hips, her little tummy, and coming down here to her leg. And you can almost see the figure appearing already. Here's her leg that's lit. And generally use a putty rubber for this. The reason why they recommend putty rubbers is that you can shape them and pull off dirty bits as well. So you can have a fresh bit of rubber underneath. So I'm looking at that. And then actually looking at the background on this side of the figure. And looking what the neck's doing. And again, that is actually light here. So again, this actually gets you to think about what the background's doing as well. So the background will actually define the figure because you want to stay away from line. There are some beautiful drawings by George Seurat, him of Sunday in the Park with George, which are almost entirely without line, and they have a beautiful quality to them. And when you're painting, you kind of want that lost edge feel where you can't see the big edges. So now I've got my drawing done with a rubber, just looking at the pattern of light. It helps you also abstract the human figure in your brain. So it's just a pattern of light you're doing, so just relating that to that to that, not thinking, oh my god, that's a person. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually make this side darker. So there's an old sort of portrait, well, artist trick actually, where you have a light subject, make the background darker, and where you have a dark subject, make the background lighter. So here we are. I'm going to put the background in first here. So it's just like that. Have a bit of a smudge. I'm generally against smudging, but charcoal I make the exception. With pastels you lose the liveliness of your drawing, I think, if you do too much smudging. And here we are, the armpit again. Going to define her bosom. Here's her bosom, here's the leg, so I am actually going to put a line in here so I know where I am. There's a dark area here. We got the leg and the elbow here, and there's a dark area of neck just there. There's her, and actually the neck's dark there, and her arm is going around the corner. And then here, this is quite dark in fact. So I'm just going to have a bit of a smudge and then hopefully start building up the drawing. So I'm just going to go in here with my fingers, which is also very satisfying. Come down here, catch what's happening here. That beautiful dark shadow that's defining her tummy. And then we got a leg that goes around the corner here, which goes into the thigh. And I want to correct that a bit. So you get this nice kind of misty figure coming out of the grey scale. So that goes down there, and I can almost use the charcoal in a very sculptural way. And this is a wonderful way of drawing, just to kick yourself out of thinking about lines all the time. So she's drawing a line. So that's the leg. And you can work into this for quite a long time. So I want to go down here, define that. So you're getting the feeling of the figure coming out of the mist. So here we have an arm going into a neck. Better put a neck on. And I'll just go in there with that. And we got the elbow, which is, the arm is foreshortened, disappearing over her shoulder, which is sort of here. So we've got an arm coming down here. See, I am resorting to line, but I'm not going to leave them there. I'm going to smudge them out. And I'm going to start working in with the light again. So that's doing that. I think that's a little bit higher up. And then we got this very sharp shadow on her leg, which is just here. So I'm going to go in quite dark with that. And then knowing I can lighten it by smudging, and also using my rubber as a drawing tool. So that comes down here. We have a hand over here and an arm over here. So I'm just trying to compute what I'm going to do about that arm. It is actually dark around the edges, so I might make the background a little bit lighter there. And now I'm going to go in my rubber and start modelling again. So here we are, rubbing this out. Notice my drawing got bigger as it went down, but I think that is higher up. So you can correct all these mistakes. And to do this, you want good light on the model. I'm very picky that with light, the artist's greatest tool, as John Singer Sargent said, that you have to have good light on your subject. I don't know if anybody's been doing portraits of loved ones in the holidays, well, in the lockdown, that you want to have, if you're doing it from a photograph, you've got to have a photograph with good light on it. So it's all about the light. So you're getting this idea of this figure appearing. Can you see it's kind of mushy, but it's still there, and I can work in detail for quite a long time with the charcoal and build it up as time goes on. Let's have a bit of a neck, and there's some interest in her neck. So in fact my rubber's now got filthy. So I'm just going to go in here and find a clean bit of rubber, and in fact that is light, defining the dark area of her arm. And then we got this arm is kind of lit with a dark edge to it. So I'm just going in there to smush it out again, and I'm going to work back in with the charcoal. So I just need to define what's really happening here, and I'm going to do it with line, but then I'm going to smush that out again and actually go in really with quite a lot of charcoal to get this very nice lost edge. I'm using line just to find my way around it. And here we have her leg. So here I've got the calf muscle and the shin bone coming down here. And that's there, and this is here, and I'm going to use the light to define that leg. And then over here I might be resorted to use line a bit down here, and here is the foreleg coming in here, and that's the calf, isn't it? Yeah, and it comes down here, and again getting rid of the line just by smudging. Let's try and define what's really going on here. And this comes up and follows the foreleg round, and then here the darkest point of any shadow is generally on the edge right near the light. So here you've got very strong light, so you've got very dark shadows just there, but actually here you've almost got reflective light defining this leg and what it might be up to. I can just go in and smudge a little bit more and make that edge soft. And then I need to define that knee, and again my rubber's got dirty, so I'm just going to pull a bit off and find a clean bit to get those lighter areas in here. So that comes down there, and we've got a thigh, and here. There we go, she's coming out of the mist. And that is very light just there. Again, I need a clean rubber, so I'm just going to pull it apart a bit to get that cleanness. And the thigh, and what's really happening there, and that is lighter. So using the background to define the figure. It's also quite useful if you ever dare to do live painting in watercolour as well, that you're actually thinking about the background defining the light. So again here, I think I need to just pin this waist down a bit. Come around here. And perhaps give her a bosom. There we go. And something resembling nipple. So you can be quite chunky when you apply the charcoal because you know you can lift it off again. And as I say, it's a really good way of drawing from painting because you don't, with painting, with oil painting particularly, you don't want to think about lines. You want lines, I suppose, for your composition, but when you get down to painting, you really need to think about the volume of whatever you're depicting, be it a pot or a person. And here we have the thigh coming round, meeting the knee, which is going to meet the hand, and then we've got this little bit as well, so I'm just going to smudge that. And we've got a little bit up there, and this is really quite dark here in the armpit. And this elbow needs defining. You see it's really quite pointy. And then that shape of the top of the arm. So we're just blocking in, and then I can actually add more detail in a minute. So I just want that to be a bit smudgy. Come down here. And that goes there. And we want that leg defined a bit. So I'm just going to make that line quite soft. And then this goes up into her shoulder, which I realise is probably a bit, making her a bit butch, but I want to define, there's quite a dark little shadow here, and I'm going up here to catch the hand and what the arm is doing. So we've got the arm doing that, the shoulder doing that, and then the forearm disappearing onto her shoulder, which is actually quite dark. So again, smushing away my lines just to make this lovely soft edge, which works really well in painting. If you think about some of the old masters' paintings, you cannot see the hard edges. I'm just thinking of Rembrandt particularly. If you look at his paintings, there really aren't that many hard edges in his figures. So you want to be able to smush it away. And of course with oils you can do that easily by fluffing. We've got a harsh shadow here and some darks in there. So I'm just having a nice old smudge around. Oh dear, she's got a withered arm now, so I'd better go and make that a little bit wider. Coming down here, understand what's going on here. So we've got this, and then we have her thumb. So that's her forearm, and then sometimes when you've got an undefined arm, if you can actually get that bit of the inner arm really by the elbow, there's often a little crease there. If you can actually depict that, that really helps you understand what an arm might be up to. So that's going up there. Ooh, we've got a bottom, I hardly noticed. So we've got a bottom here, which again, this, I'm just looking at this photograph, she has, I don't know if she's done it in the developing process maybe, of actually making it seem lighter just there. So I just want to get that, have a bit of a smudge, and then I can work into that with my rubber. And got a thigh here, and the knee, again, the darkest point of any shadow is where the light hits it, as it were. So there we have a knee just here. Maybe if I make that a bit darker, that light will seem lighter. That little ball of light on that knee. And there's another ball of light just there. So, And again, it's such fun because you're using your fingers to draw, which I think is always actually much more instinctive. So we've got something going up here, so we've got quite a light area there. You can resort to chalk to get the lighter bits to seem lighter, but I find they it actually makes everything turn sort of mushy grey, which I don't like, so I prefer to try and just use the paper to be the light. There we go, there's a bosom, and I suppose I could work a little bit harder on the nipple. Oh, I know, let's try a Q-tip. Haha. See, you can actually work round. And there we have this very light bit on her wrist, which is really defining that arm. But the rubber is quite a blunt tool sometimes, so I'm going to have to go in and work that out. And so this is her forearm, and again I'm going to use Smudge to try and define what's going on there. And I think her neck is a bit wider now I look at it. There we go. And actually that's a little bit wrong, so in fact that comes up higher and then goes down to meet her wrist. And then this I think is a little bit higher where her arm is resting on her knee. And I'm just going to have a quick smudge, and I'm going to define. So we got the elbow here, and then we have a bit of a forearm doing that, and defining the hand. As you can see, they've got rather elegant shape just there, but terribly difficult to do. And we've got hand there meeting her shoulder here, which is a little bit further down. So I'm just going to use line to help me understand what I'm doing, which can be tricky sometimes. So in fact that is more like that. And again softening those lines. And then we have the tricky bit of feet and hands. Yes, you can see what's going on. So we've got this area here, which is dark with the light behind. I'm just going to put a little bit more grey in there, make it slightly less startling. And so we've got this that comes down here and meets her hand, which is clutching her knee. Comes round down like that. It's quite nice actually doing fingers with this technique. So what you can do, you can just smush, 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 and then use your rubber to define the fingers. So you're defining the fingers through light rather than line. And I think when you define fingers with line, they can end up looking like bunches of bananas. I know I've done a few myself. But if you can actually use light to define what a finger is doing, it's much, much easier. So we've got a finger there and a little one here. So here I want a little bit more precision, so I'm going to make my putty rubber pointy and come in here and define those fingers sort of like that. I think that needs to come down a bit. And there's a little tiny dark there, and as the fingers curl around the leg. Now it's looking like a bunch of bananas, but never mind. So this goes here. I just want to define that, and then whoops, so again I need more precision in my putty rubber and cleanness as well to get that very light area just there as the light falls on her arm. So again coming in here, and I can use the rubber to get the kind of internal light of her arm and possibly shoulder. Oh look, we've got a bone and some muscle, and that's not the world's greatest hand, so I just need to make that wrist come in. I'm just looking at this shape here. If I can get that right, hopefully the hand will appear. And that's sort of like that. And a thumb, and the fingers, which are sort of here. There we go. Not the world's greatest, but let's have a bit of a smudge, and then perhaps I won't mind so much. And again, now I can actually correct with my rubber. Oops. And then coming in here to find the light on her fingers. Oh. There we go, as it goes around the corner. Oh no, she's got feet as well. And in fact that goes like that, and this is her shadow. And then we have feet, which are really quite dark. And I think there's a toe over here, so I'm just going to go in there. And I want to make that bit light to make it seem it's got volume. It's getting this roundness with the light and the shade. And just see if we can define that line. I find it not quite so annoying. And then we've got a line here, and we've got a knuckle here, which is actually defined by a light area just there. And this is quite light. So we're defining the muscles and the volume by using light rather than thinking about using shadow or shading to do. So using the light to model the form, and this is what this technique is all about, and you can have lots of fun playing with your fingers, and it's, I don't know, I think it's more instinctual than having to shade, because with shading you're just adding dark and you can't really see what's happening in the dark, but with this technique you're actually modeling the light. And as I say, it's a great way of getting over artist's block, figure drawing, and it's always one of the first lessons you'd have while doing a live class or anything in an art college really. Well, I suppose they still teach drawing. And here I'm more or less finished. I've got her feet to do, which are practically entirely in shadow, so all I can do, and this actually goes around here, so that's dark. Again, always softening my lines with my finger. I think the paper is getting a bit full and it won't take much more. And in fact, I'm going to leave the feet as more or less just dark shapes. I don't want to put toes in, that's too much to ask. I was thinking, has she got bunions? But no, that's her left foot, so here are her toes. But I'm just going to smush those out. And we have another toe going on here. And I'm just going to smush that out again, softening that edge. Anyway, a lovely technique. I do recommend trying it out. Doing a self-portrait in this technique is also a useful thing. So again, it helps you abstract your face almost, because it's something you know very well. I could go on and fill with this. I want that to be a soft edge, but I'm going to stop now. But charcoal, as you can see, is very fleeting and will disappear on a piece of paper. So if you do a drawing like this, you do need to fix it. And I always recommend firm hold hairspray because it smells slightly less poisonous than you can get commercial fixatives, but they are smell terrible, and I'm sure they're full of all sorts of poisonous things. So I think I prefer to use hairspray. So again, just softening a few edges, and I'm fiddling, so I'm going to stop now. Okay, and next time we're doing glazing with oil paints, which is lots of fun to do, but I'm going to do it on a black and white acrylic painting. It's an old master technique called grisaille, and we will do that next time. Bye bye everybody.